All right, here we are. Happy Halloween, Ben. Ding dong. The doors are ringing. The Kit Kats are coming out. Hopefully you're not serving those poor kids apples.
Hey, an apple a day keeps the doctor away. That's what we say at the Steam Zone here. We're a health-forward podcast here.
So what are you putting on your bunny ears and going out knocking on doors, Ben, or are you staying home and maybe watching a good movie?
Well, a great question, though. It leads into, I think, our first topic. I watched a great movie last week, House of Dynamite on Netflix. I don't know. Have you heard of it, Noah?
I have not. Tell me about it.
It is a great new film. Really excited, from the creator of Hurt Locker, Zero Dark 30. So you know it's going to be tense. We have a nuclear warhead launched towards the U.S., and then the next 20 minutes are played over a few times from Situation Room, Stratcom, the White House, other really cool areas. No one knows who launched the missile, so they're trying to figure it out. The interceptors maybe work, maybe don't work. The president has to decide whether to strike back or risk doing nothing. The whole national security apparatus is working, and it's really, really tense. And so, I really haven't thought much about nuclear weapons since thinking about the Cold War and mutually assured destruction. But give me the 101 on nuclear, Noah. Like, are we still juggling mutually assured destruction with the Soviet Union? Or does it have a new term now? Is there a new buzzword? Integrated deterrence? I mean, what is going on with nuclear right now?
Nuclear's hot right now, and not in the way that we usually talk about. Normally, when you hear nuclear on the Steam Zone, it's Ben advocating for a microreactor in his backyard. Not today. Nuclear of the last week, I don't know if you've been tracking, Russia tested this new cruise missile, nuclear-powered but not nuclear-tipped cruise missile. So it's basically the machinery that allows it to fly really, 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 really far without needing the same kind of fuel. Potentially that was interpreted as a nuclear test by some in the American government. It's unclear exactly what they were pointing at. But President Trump came out and said, hey, look, other countries are testing nuclear weapons. We're going to start testing nuclear weapons. It does not seem officially from publicly available sources that any country aside from North Korea has been testing nuclear weapons for the past 30 or so years. There really hasn't. There's been a test ban in place. China and Russia have not been doing it. We have not either. And so amidst this government shutdown, you now have some American engineers presumably kind of scrambling to say, how do we dust off these things and start testing? Are we going to start exploding nuclear weapons in the deserts of Nevada? You've got the folks out in Nevada, local government, state government there saying, no, you will not. Trying to introduce legislation to prohibit testing and in their territory. Good luck. Just another federal state showdown. Just what we need in 2025 is a little more jurisdictional brouhaha. Anyway, I think where we're at in all this, Fed, is that, look, we're in the return of great power competition. We've got China. We got Russia. Russia making moves in Europe, China making moves in the Pacific, fighting us on minerals. Yes, we got a minerals deal last week. Trump sit together, very happy. We'll see kind of where that all goes. But the reality is we're not talking about the U.S. beating up on terrorists anymore. We're not talking about America fighting, dudes in caves in Tora Bora. We're now talking about high capability, high capacity, high economic might of China, of Russia, of our old foes. And so when that happens, you're dealing with the potential for escalation, where any decision will have an equal and opposite or equal, maybe opposite reaction. The chance for miscalculation goes up. And so naturally, as these tensions get a little bit higher, and it seems like we're on this a little bit of roller coaster ebb and flow here, people are going to worry about this kind of thing. And so maybe I don't know why Catherine Bigelow decided this was the movie that she needed to do at this time, but perhaps it has to do with the current state of geopolitical affairs. What do you think? What am I missing?
One, it's a gripping movie. Go watch it. Fun. Who knows how true it is or isn't. Always fun when you got the nuclear football going around. But I think what struck me is both this news and the movie is how, what's the famous painting? A pipe this is not a pipe, or this is a pipe, right? Well, a test is not just a test, right? You're not just finding out and testing your nuclear weapons. Everything has more meaning. Everything has more layers to it. So when you test, you're actually sending the Chinese and Russian a message, right? So everything we do in this great power competition has layers and layers of both domestic, like you talk state versus federal, the international implications. Technological, we talk about the defense industrial base as how do we evolve our nuclear weapon set with the new way? How do we have the software to command and control? I mean, it touches everything. A test, right? It is not a test. Is not just a test. So that's something to consider as we proceed in bothering situation.
Boom, boom. Let's hopefully not hear any of the booms on the nuclear.
I think with nuclear, you don't hear it though. You just get wiped out.
Yeah, I guess there's no boom. It's just kind of you're gonna have a bad time. All right. Well, hey, we'll keep an eye on that. We'll see if there's any more gripping nuclear drama in our near future. Let's go ahead and move on to our next topic, Ben. We like drama here on the Steam Zone. We seem to see, and you know one of the drama pieces I was particularly intrigued by this week. Our friend of the show, Ryan Evans, the founder and CEO of War on the Rocks podcast, Metamorphic Media Group. Ryan did kind of a really interesting, well, I'll call this a controlled experiment. Ryan posted his thoughts on the Department of War's plans to pay the troops during the current government shutdown. I think most folks are very happy with the troops being paid during the government shutdown. That's not really necessarily the contestation here. But Ryan did something kind of interesting. He posted his take on X, and he posted his take on Blue Sky. Two different platforms, same take, same time, right? And it had to do with how the Department of War was going to pay the troops, where they were going to take the money from. Simple take. This is illegal. That's Ryan's perspective on this. This has not been ruled in court. This just came out today. On X, on one side, he gets hit from the right, basically saying, hey, look, what do you not want the troops to get paid? What do you know? You're not a lawyer. You're kind of an idiot anyway. He gets hit on the left, right, saying, oh my gosh, this is the fashy war on the rocks. You know, they just want more war. These guys they're fascists because he must be right. Like, now, I don't know, Ben, how well you know Ryan, but I can tell you that he is not really a right winger, and he's not really a total leftist. Ryan's a pretty moderate guy. He's got views that, well, I'm not going to speak for him. The point is, both these people are totally wrong, which is kind of funny. But more than even his take, the just experiment of same take, different platforms yields a different outcome. Have you spent any time on these two platforms this week, Ben?
I try, honestly, I think this is a good example of why I've been trying to reduce my time in this platform, on any of these platforms, is that I don't feel like I am learning, right? I am getting responses. I'm getting a dopamine hit in all directions as the response to the response, the response to the response, watching the drama unfold. And I don't know that I'm actually learning substantive stuff. On this issue, there's probably a lot of really interesting articles, legislative court cases, discussions about it, discussions on both sides that you could learn about and come to an opinion. None of that substance is actually happening on any of these. So I think it's a fun experiment. It shows how honestly toxic some of these places can be. Probably all, right? Like, and I think there is a moment, at least I feel, where people are unplugging because they're saying, yeah, I used to like it because I could pretend and tell myself I'm gaining information. I'm learning something about the world. But the more and more I've seen, and this is not platform specific, this is across what I feel like almost all social media, I'm not learning. I'm watching people react. It's sports, and I'd rather just watch sports and see real professionals do really amazing athletic stuff. And the longer, the longer I stay off these, the less urge, the easier it gets to stay off them, because it's like, as soon as you quit, the addiction goes away, and you're like, why did I spend an hour scrolling X? What was I doing on Instagram? What? Is this how I would want to spend my time if I wasn't just continually swiping and take a step back?
You know what I've tried to do this week? I read this from the Don't Die guy, Brian. What's his name?
Brian Johnson.
Yeah, Brian Johnson, the Don't Die guy. He was saying, look, if you have the urge to pick up your phone, just stop and wait 10 minutes. And if you do that 10 times a day, you'll be shocked how quickly it picks up. Here's how I've done it. Is every time I reach, and it is an involuntary reach. When you involuntarily reach for your phone, you stop and say, what am I hoping to achieve with this? And about 75% of the time, 3 out of 4 times, I end up not picking it up. When I do, I'm able to time box myself a little bit better. Now, I don't know. My mental faculties are decent. They're not the best. They're okay. I have pretty good control of my own impulses. But I found that even just that thinking about what you're about to do has helped me. Let's hit this issue though before we move off of it. Ben, the government is shut down. They're still trying to pay the military. What do you think about this? Is this something that are they doing this the right way? Is this going to hold up in court?
We have the other podcast, the Flip Steam Legal Zone podcast, which I'm sure your family's like mine has a lot of lawyers. This is not a cop out. These things are complicated. I have no idea. What I do believe is what I've seen in my experience living through these on active duty, like it is not good that our troops don't get paid. There are a lot of troops that go do some research if you don't know this. Go pull up a pay chart of junior enlisted troops, and you'll see how little they actually do make. And it's totally reasonable. It's not because they're buying avocado toast in Starbucks that they are living truly paycheck to paycheck. And they are doing it not because they couldn't make more money in the private sector, because they want to serve their country. And so it sucks that they're not going to get paid. And for them, I'm happy they're getting paid.
Yeah.
Someone's going to have to go figure out the law. I am totally unqualified and happy to say I'm unqualified and not give a Twitter take that isn't qualified. And
we love the humility. We love the humility. I will say it is not. I mean, the troops obviously key, but let me tell you something. If you're going to try to move around for even in the private sector, it's going to have spillovers. You're trying to move around between cities. You need to take a business trip. You want to fly out of Newark. You want to fly into LAX. The TSA, the air traffic controllers, who are already stretched really freaking thin, they're starting to call out sick. A lot of calling out sick, so you're seeing massive delays. This does have spillovers. This is not just a walled off to the government thing. This is. I know it was kind of fashionable to be like, oh, tell me how the government shutdown is hurting you. You're already starting to see judges ruling and saying, hey, government's got to keep paying SNAP. Like at some point, something's got to give. Like we can't just operate business as usual with no budget, with no revenues, for indefinitely. It's going to have to come back online because there is a knock-on effect here. How they do that, that's why people get voted to go to Washington. So figure it out, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Speaking of court, Ben.
Oh,
speaking of court, let's do a little legal. The Steam Legal Zone is now in session. Knock knock. One of our favorite kind of litigious defense tech companies back in the news this week, Palantir. Famous for initially.
Please don't sue us now.
Don't sue us. Don't sue the Steam Zone.
I'm making a lot of money here at the Steam Zone, so it's not worth it.
We will not be paid to play or not to play. Palantir this week is back in the news for a lawsuit over some ex-employees who have started a new company with venture capital firm General Catalyst. So this one's kind of interesting, right? You got two folks who left Palantir about a year ago, started this new company called Percepta. Percepta is known as an AI transformation company. It's directly funded by General Catalyst. I think it's entirely funded by General Catalyst. GC is kind of an interesting venture firm to begin with, right? They operate a little bit more like private equity than pure play venture. They own a hospital. They're making a big, there's been whispers of them maybe going public. They're making big bets. The point is they've got a lot of assets across classes. It is in their interest to be able to help these large enterprises do something, let's say, make sense of their data, use their data. That's one of Palantir's core competencies. But honestly, BCG would say they do the same thing. McKinsey, Bain, Deloitte, they would all say, hey, we help large enterprises make use of their data and their assets. Percepta is a technology company that's supposedly developing AI solutions to do that. So these two folks left Palantir, started Percepta with GC backing, then went on to hire 12 other former Palantir engineers. What do we think here, Ben? Obviously, companies put non-competes into place. I'm not asking you about the legal merits of the case, but just looking at it face value, what do you think about Palantir going after their former employees?
Makes me nervous for an ecosystem, right? You need people to be able to go start companies. That's what you do. You go work at a big company, you learn, refresh, go do something new at a smaller company, start a new idea, big companies get bureaucratic. They're focused on one thing. You learn a lot, and this keeps the ecosystem live. It's good for big companies because guess what? They can acquire smaller companies that are able to go to experiment it's good for everyone in the ecosystem. So that makes me nervous. Obviously, again, we're not lawyers, so I can't evaluate the actual claims in this case. But that makes me nervous, really nervous for the ecosystem. And as an outsider, I think we always joke, no one knows what Palantir does, right? Well, if you do everything, then that's really hard to say that someone isn't copying what you're doing. And so, it's a difficult place to be, I think, if you're starting a company. Certainly, I wouldn't want to be there.
Yeah, let's see where this plays out. I think non-competes have had a rough go for the last few years anyway. It's pretty hard to enforce them. It depends on the jurisdiction, blah, blah, blah. Obviously, if these guys are taking source code or taking trade secrets and applying it for a new company, that's a no-no. But at the same time, Palantir, a publicly traded, huge company at this point. They like to say we don't really have a competitor. Maybe Perceptive becomes one, but this definitely seems a little bit like maybe an attempt to smother it in the cradle. See where it goes. Interesting to see Palantir back in the lawfare game, and we'll keep track on where this ends. I'd be surprised if we didn't see some sort of. Actually, my commentary doesn't matter. Also, not a lawyer. Have not spent 3 years in any law school. Never will. But we'll move on. Speaking of other battles, though, man, not all of them are corporate here on the Steam Zone. We do have some other things going on in the world. There's been some rumor mill in overdrive this week. Warships down off the coast in Latin America and South America, in the Caribbean. We've had will he or won't he kind of conjecture, is the president preparing to bomb the land of Venezuela to go after President Nicolas Maduro, who he says this administration has claimed is a drug dealer, is a member of the drug cartels out there in Venezuela. Kind of interesting how where we are right now. It was not that long ago. It was January of this year that President's Special Envoy Rick Grenell met President Maduro in Venezuela in that gold palace. We thought, maybe these guys both like gold. Maybe there's a friendship here. The deal they had sealed, it was 6 Americans who had been detained in the country in exchange for hundreds of Venezuelan migrants. And these migrants were people that our administration said belonged to Tren de Aragua, this horrendous gang that does some horrific things, and not the least of which is importing large quantities of drugs into the United States. I mean, this was just about 9 months ago, and now we've got 8 warships circling the waters. We've got bombers kind of strafing the coast. We've got 10,000 troops in the area. What's the case, Ben, for more engagement in Venezuela, military engagement?
I mean, it sounds like I don't want to steel man the argument. We've got. I think what I think about is the 2001 AUMF is still being used, which is really interesting, right? Our
authorization of use of military force.
9/11 authorization of military force. So that's the justification for this in terms of legal, which is really interesting, right? Because we're still living with a document that was written 24 years ago that they're now authorizing action in Venezuela.
Lay this out for us, because you're familiar with that. That document was focused on the global war on terror. It allowed the president not to just strike Afghanistan, but to go after terrorists anywhere where they threaten U.S. interests.
And it allows you to go after nations, terrorists, groups, people that are support of terrorism. And so pretty broad definition. Again, not a lawyer, but I think everyone should at home, as a good citizen, go read that document, right? Because that document is the law, right? Signed into law by Congress. That is a really important document that we influence and live by today, right? So there's really interesting stuff on the legal side for this authorization of force. And then there's a whole dynamic. I mean, you've got the 22nd MEU right now, Marine Expeditionary Unit in Puerto Rico, so nearby, hanging out. So we're covered in that AOR, thanks to the Marines. You're welcome. But there's a lot of obviously nerves around this country, Venezuela, which has a shit ton of natural resources, but also has a lot of political turmoil. And so this is in our sphere of influence, right? Like, this is in America. So this obviously affects us. And so, it's something we should keep an eye on to make sure, we care about this region, obviously.
Is this just a return to the Monroe Doctrine? This is America's backyard. And like, hey, get out of here with your foreign. Like, no, we're not doing socialist influence in Venezuela. New York City is fine, but not in Venezuela. Is that like the line, or is there something else going on here?
Yeah, this is it's a new world and it's the old world, right? It's we everything changed, right? We were talking about nuclear and here we are testing nuclear weapons just like we were, you know, in the Cold War.
Not yet. We'll see. We'll see if we
yeah.
go to test. If we go.
But so what is new is old, and what is old is new, and so I don't. You'll tell me what we'll keep you updated on the Steam Zone whether we what we do next in Venezuela.
Well, look, I think it's more than look. Folks maybe get their breaking news from other platforms. Where I think we maybe have an opinion is when you talk about, all right, what is actually going on here beneath the headlines. Look, Venezuela is a really interesting and somewhat important country. Not only is it physically located so close to the U.S., we've talked about the resources that country has, but it also has become, I mean, it's sort of substituted from Colombia, at least in the psyche, the American psyche. And the gangs out of Venezuela, Tren de Aragua, has been brutal here in this country. The drug inflows, I don't have numbers in front of me. We'll get those maybe for next week. Drug inflows from these different countries. This is a return to the war on drugs is really what this is, more than a return to the war on terror. Now you can use those two. We could say, hey, drugs are terror. The cartels are the real terrorists. I think that is what we're seeing this administration kind of make that claim. It's a little bit different in that terrorists fly bombs into buildings and cartels. They sell you a product that is horrible, but they're generally not coming over and forcibly injecting those drugs into American arms. So, maybe this is just an academic point. I think there's some nuance there. It's got to be very hard to argue that hey, this is a good thing, and we should welcome the drug dealers, and we should welcome the drug inflows into the United States of America. You're not going to hear that argument from me. I don't think you're going to hear that argument here on the Steam Zone, where we do need to kind of determine, hey, what does it mean to operate within the construct of the rule of law? Is how are we? Is this a law enforcement operation, or is this a military operation? For folks sitting at home, there are different authorities, different titles that operates under. Title 10, Title 13. There's different governing statute that allows you to interact differently. Ben's mentions the AUMF, exceedingly broad document, right? And what we're seeing right now, and we've seen for 2 decades, is the consequences of a Congress that has abdicated its responsibility to, and then gets upset. They'd rather yell about how the government, the president didn't ask their permission, but they've still never repealed the AUMF. This has been, we've been through a few chapters here. It happened around Libya in the Obama administration. It's come up, again and again. There will be a small caucus of folks who says, hey, we really need to repeal that document and make the executive come to us. Well, they haven't done it. Surprise, surprise. And so as a result, you do have kind of a fairly expansive definition. No love lost here for the cartels. I'd love to see us going after Tren de Aragua. These are not good people. You also want to, I think, see us do that in a way that, one, is clear to the American people what's happening, it's clear why it's happening, and that it operates within some sort of legal framework. So we will stay tuned by this time next week. I'm sure there'll be some new developments down in Venezuela.
Great overview, Noah. Seriously, we need, as citizens, I think, to understand what's going on in the world. Not if it doesn't just directly affect us. It's important to know all of what our government's doing on our behalf.
As long as we're not going after the Zyn manufacturers, Ben, those guys are above reproach here. All right, we're going to cut this.
And we're accepting sponsorship from not only Palantir, from Zyn or Alp, anyone who wants to come on and support the Steam Zone. We will accept.
Here it is. Ding, 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 ding. The best time of Ben's week.
Let's do it. All right, we got a problem here in New York. We have 3 big events going on. Halloween, the marathon on Sunday, and an election on Tuesday. That is too much. We need to space these things out. I need my time monitoring data for the election. I need my time out cheering for the marathon. And we all need our time out dressing up and having a great time in New York City for Halloween. All three of these events are very New York events, very fun, and have their own, special time associated with them. And it's crazy that they were just jamming it all in the 3 days. So come on, the calendar masters, we need to work this out better for next year.
Pour some cold water on that, New York. You're steaming hot. Kalshi's got to get in on the Halloween parade. Over under 17 Taylor and Travis costumes this year in the parade. We'd like to know. The people want to know. People are curious. All right, Ben. Well, that's a good one. We're talking about Halloween weekend. This is a steam that it's a tale as old as time. What comes with Halloween weekend? Daylight savings time. And let me tell you something, man. I do not know a single human. I have not met a single human that likes the fall behind. Fall behind is brutal. It's getting dark out there at 5 o'clock. Next week, it's going to be getting dark at 4 o'clock. That is depressing. Americans, New Yorkers, we like to be out. We like to be social. We like to be in the world. You know what does not help with being out in the world is getting dark at 4 p.m. It is the ringing of the death knell of winter. It is my least favorite time of year. There is no good reason. The farmers don't need it anymore. The farmers don't want it anymore. Some states don't even do daylight savings time. If you go to, I think it's Arizona or Nevada, you don't even know if you're in the right time zone. Things are changing. We got to make this real simple. Congress, you want to get that approval rating up? Open the government and then nix daylight savings time. In fact, you could put it in the grand bargain. Whatever the bargain is, who are we going to fund? I don't know. You'll get it done, but more importantly, we're not changing the clocks. We're done with that. No more daylight savings time. That's what I got.
Great take, great week. Thanks for tuning in, everybody.
Happy Halloween, happy election week. We'll see you next week with a new mayor.